The Earth hung in space like a blue-green jewel, its surface scarred but healing from the first alien invasion. Admiral Janice Thorne stood on the observation deck of Defense Station Alpha, her weathered hands clasped behind her back as she watched the construction drones work tirelessly to complete the planetary shield array. The magnetic field generators, massive structures that looked like metallic flowers blooming from the planet's surface, hummed with an energy that made the very air vibrate. "Status report, Commander Hayes," she said without turning from the viewport. Commander Sarah Hayes consulted her datapad, her voice crisp and professional. "Shield generators are operating at 97% efficiency. The Martian colonies have completed their defensive installations, and the asteroid belt monitoring stations are fully operational. We've also established 3 deep space early warning outposts at the edge of the solar system." Janice nodded, but her expression remained grim. "And the prisoners? The captured Zephyrians are still refusing to cooperate. Dr. Chen believes their coral-based neural networks make traditional interrogation impossible. Their consciousness seems to be distributed across their entire colony structure." The mention of the coral structure sent a chill down Janice's spine. During the first invasion, humanity had learned that the Zephyrians weren't individuals in any sense humans could understand. They were colony organisms, their consciousness shared through vast coral reefs that served as both their cities and their minds. Destroying their ships had been like cutting tentacles from an octopus, painful, but not fatal to the whole. "Keep trying," Janice said. "We need to understand their weaknesses before they return. Ma'am, with respect, do we know they're coming back? Our victory was decisive. We destroyed over 60% of their fleet." Janice finally turned from the viewport, her gray eyes reflecting the cold light of distant stars. At 53, she had seen 3 wars, but none like this. The Zephyrians hadn't come for resources or territory, they had come to harvest humanity's consciousness itself, to add human neural patterns to their vast collective mind. "Commander, in my experience, wounded predators are the most dangerous. We hurt them badly, but we didn't finish them. They'll be back, and next time they'll be prepared for our defenses." As if summoned by her words, Lieutenant Torres burst onto the observation deck, his face pale with urgency. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Deep Space Monitor 7. Long-range sensors are detecting movement in the Proxima Centauri system." Janice felt her blood turn to ice water. Proxima Centauri, the nearest star system to Earth, and the direction from which the first invasion had come. "How long until they arrive?" she asked. "Based on their previous travel speed, approximately 8 months, ma'am." 8 months. It seemed like a lifetime and an instant simultaneously. Janice turned back to the viewport, watching as a transport ship carried the final components for the shield array's tertiary generators. "Commander Hayes, implement Defense Protocol Omega. I want every military installation, every civilian defense force, every colonial militia on full alert. And get me Captain Louise Reeves. We're going to need her special talents." "Yes, ma'am." "Shall I notify the World Council?" "Not yet. Let's confirm the threat before we cause a panic. But start quietly moving civilian populations away from major cities. If the Zephyrians break through our defenses again, I want as few targets as possible." As her subordinates hurried to carry out her orders, Janice remained at the viewport. She thought about her daughter Maya, safe in the underground cities of Luna. She thought about the billions of humans who had looked to her for protection during the first invasion. She had saved them once, but at such a cost. Entire cities had been evacuated, space elevators destroyed, orbital platforms abandoned. The economic disruption alone had set human civilization back decades. This time would be different. This time, humanity would not merely survive, they would end the threat forever. Captain Louise Reeves was knee-deep in the maintenance shaft of her stealth ship, the Shadow's Edge, when the priority communication came through. The ship's AI, which she had nicknamed Whisper, for its habit of speaking in barely audible tones, announced the incoming transmission with unusual urgency. "Captain, Admiral Thorne requests immediate secure communication. Classification level, Omega Black." Louise wiped the plasma coolant from her hands and slid out of the maintenance shaft. At 34, she was young for a captain, but her record spoke for itself. She had led 17 successful deep space reconnaissance missions, including the dangerous intelligence-gathering operations that had ultimately led to humanity's victory in the First War. Patch her through, whisper. Full encryption. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing Admiral Thorne's stern features. Behind her, Louise could see the familiar curves of Defense Station Alpha's command center. Captain Reeves, I need you back at Sol Station immediately. We have a situation. The Zephyrians? Long-range sensors confirm it. They're massing in the Proxima system. Intelligence suggests they're not coming with the same force as before, they're coming with everything they have. Louise felt her stomach drop. During the first invasion, the Zephyrians had sent what amounted to a scouting force. Their main fleet had been composed of relatively small vessels, each carrying a single coral colony. The damage they had done with just that limited force had been catastrophic. What's our timeline? 8 months until they reach Earth orbit. But Louise, this time we're not playing defense. The World Council has authorized Operation Deep Strike. Louise had never heard that operation name before, but something in Thorne's tone told her it was significant. What's the mission profile? You'll be briefed when you arrive, but I can tell you this much, we're taking the fight to them. Your ship is the only vessel in the fleet with the stealth capabilities necessary for what we have in mind. The transmission ended, leaving Louise alone with Whisper's gentle humming. She sealed the maintenance shaft and began her pre-flight checklist. The Shadow's Edge was a unique vessel, built specifically for deep space infiltration. Its hull was composed of metamaterials that could bend electromagnetic radiation around the ship, making it effectively invisible to most sensor arrays. More importantly, its neural dampening field could hide it from the Zephyrian psychic detection methods. Whisper, set course for Sol Station. Maximum burn. Course laid in, Captain? Estimated arrival time, 47 hours, 13 minutes. As the ship's engines came online, Louise strapped herself into the pilot's seat and watched the stars stretch into lines as they jumped to superluminal speed. She had a bad feeling about this mission, whatever it was. The Zephyrians were unlike any enemy humanity had faced before. They didn't just want to conquer Earth. They wanted to absorb it, to add human consciousness to their vast collective mind. During the first invasion, captured humans had been taken to the coral cities and subjected to a process the scientists called neural harvesting. The victims remained physically alive, but their minds became part of the Zephyrian collective. The few who had been rescued described the experience as a living nightmare, aware and conscious, but unable to control their thoughts or actions. Louise shuddered and forced herself to focus on the mission ahead. Whatever Admiral Thorne had planned, it would be dangerous. But if there was a chance to end the Zephyrian threat permanently, she would take it. Sol Station hung in space like a massive wheel, its rotating sections generating artificial gravity for the thousands of personnel who called it home. As the Shadow's Edge approached the docking bay, Louise could see the frantic activity of a military installation preparing for war. Fighters launched on patrol routes, cargo ships delivered supplies, and the massive shapes of battleships moved with ponderous grace between the station's arms. Admiral Thorne was waiting for her in Briefing Room 7, along with several other officers Louise didn't recognize. The room's holographic projector was already active, displaying a three-dimensional map of the local star systems. Captain Reeves, thank you for coming so quickly, Thorne said. Allow me to introduce the team. This is Colonel Marcus Webb, our xenobiology specialist. Dr. Elena Vasquez, our leading expert on Zephyrian technology. And Commander David Kim, head of special operations. Louise took her seat, noting the tension in the room. These were not people planning a simple military operation. Gentlemen, ladies, Thorne began. What I'm about to share with you does not leave this room. The World Council has authorized Operation Deep Strike, a preemptive strike against the Zephyrian home system. Our objective is not merely to defeat their invasion fleet, it's to end their species entirely. The words hung in the air like a physical weight. Louise had expected a dangerous mission, but genocide was something else entirely. Dr. Vasquez leaned forward, her voice clinical and precise. Our analysis of captured Zephyrian vessels has revealed a critical vulnerability. Their coral colonies are not merely cities or ships, they're living organisms with centralized nervous systems. If we can deliver a specially designed neural disruptor to their primary colonies, we can effectively lobotomize their entire civilization. How do we know where their primary colonies are? Louise asked. Colonel Webb activated the holographic display, showing a detailed star chart of the Proxima Centauri system. Long-range spectral analysis has identified massive coral structures in orbit around Proxima Centauri b. We believe these are their primary breeding and command centers. If we can penetrate their defenses and deliver the neural disruptor directly to these structures, we can cripple their ability to coordinate attacks. Commander Kim spoke for the first time, his voice low and gravelly. That's where you come in, Captain. The Shadow's Edge is the only ship in our fleet with the stealth capabilities necessary to penetrate Zephyrian space undetected. Your mission will be to infiltrate their home system, locate their primary coral colonies, and deploy the neural disruptor. Louise studied the star chart, noting the distances involved. How long would this mission take? Round trip, approximately 18 months, Thorne replied. But Captain, there's something else you need to know. The neural disruptor isn't just a weapon, it's a viral agent. Once deployed, it will spread throughout their neural network, affecting every Zephyrian colony in the galaxy. This won't be a surgical strike, it will be the complete extinction of their species. The room fell silent. Louise stared at the holographic display, watching the orbital patterns of the alien coral cities. She thought about the humans who had been captured during the first invasion, their minds absorbed into the collective consciousness. She thought about the billions of people on Earth who would die if the Zephyrians succeeded in their second attack. What about our prisoners? The Zephyrians we captured during the first invasion? Dr. Vasquez's expression darkened. The neural disruptor will affect them as well. They will die within hours of deployment. And the humans whose minds have been absorbed into their collective? Unknown. The neural disruption might free them, or it might kill them along with their captors. We simply don't have enough data to predict the outcome. Louise closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision before her. This wasn't just a military mission, it was a moral choice that would define humanity's future. Would they become the kind of species that committed genocide to protect themselves? Admiral, she said finally, I need some time to think about this. I understand, Captain. But I need your answer within 24 hours. The longer we wait, the closer their invasion fleet gets to Earth. As the briefing dispersed, Louise remained in her seat, staring at the holographic display. The coral cities of Proxima Centauri b rotated slowly in their virtual orbits, beautiful and alien and utterly hostile to human life. Somewhere in those structures were the minds that had ordered the attack on Earth, the consciousness that viewed humanity as nothing more than raw material for their collective. But they were also living beings, with their own right to exist. The moral implications of what she was being asked to do made her feel sick. Whisper, she said to her ship's AI through her communicator. Run a full analysis of the mission parameters. I want to know everything about the risks and alternatives. Certainly, Captain. Preliminary analysis suggests a mission success probability of 37%. Alternative strategies are being evaluated. 37%. Those were not good odds, especially for a mission that would determine the fate of 2 entire species. Louise spent the next 18 hours in her quarters aboard Sol Station, poring over the mission data and wrestling with the moral implications of Operation Deep Strike. She called up historical files, studying humanity's past conflicts and the decisions that had shaped their civilization. The Zephyrians were undeniably a threat. Their first invasion had resulted in the deaths of over 2 million humans and the complete destruction of several major cities. The neural harvesting process they used on captured humans was arguably worse than death, a living hell of conscious imprisonment. If their second invasion succeeded, billions would die or suffer that same fate. But genocide was genocide, regardless of the justification. If humanity crossed that line, what would they become? Would they be any better than the species they were trying to destroy? Her contemplation was interrupted by a soft chime from her door. "Come in," she called. Admiral Thorne entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Louise and took a seat across from her. "Having second thoughts?" Thorne asked. "Wouldn't you?" Thorne sipped her coffee, her expression thoughtful. "Louise, can I tell you something about the first invasion? Something that's not in the official reports?" Louise nodded, sensing that whatever Thorne was about to share would be significant. "During the final battle over Luna, I captured a damaged Zephyrian vessel. When our boarding team entered the ship, they found something unexpected: human children. Dozens of them, all between the ages of 6 and 12. They had been taken from the evacuation centers on Mars and brought to the Coral Cities." Louise felt her blood run cold. What had been done to them? The neural harvesting process had already begun. Their minds were being slowly absorbed into the collective, but the process was incomplete. Dr. Chen was able to reverse it in some cases, but the psychological damage was severe. Most of them will never recover. Thorne set down her coffee cup, her hands trembling slightly. "One of those children was my grandson, Tommy. He was 8 years old when they took him. When we got him back, he couldn't speak for 6 months. He kept talking about the voice in his head and the coral dreams. Even now, 2 years later, he has nightmares about being absorbed back into the collective." Louise felt tears stinging her eyes. She had known the Zephyrians had taken prisoners, but the official reports had focused on military casualties and infrastructure damage. "Louise, I'm not asking you to commit genocide out of revenge. I'm asking you to prevent it from happening to millions more children. The Zephyrians see us as resources to be harvested, nothing more. They will never stop coming, never negotiate, never show mercy. This is our only chance to end the threat permanently." After Thorne left, Louise sat alone in her quarters, staring out at the stars. She thought about Tommy Thorne and the other children who had been rescued from the Coral Cities. She thought about the Zephyrian prisoners in the holding cells below, living beings with their own right to exist. She thought about the billions of humans on Earth who were counting on her to protect them. Finally, she activated her communicator. "Whisper, get me Admiral Thorne." "Yes, Captain." Thorne's image appeared on the holographic display, her expression hopeful but guarded. "Admiral," Louise said, "I'll take the mission. But I want 2 conditions." "Name them." "First, I want a complete scientific team aboard my ship. If there's any possibility of freeing the absorbed human minds without killing the Zephyrians, I want to explore it." "Agreed." "What's the second condition?" "If I find evidence that the Zephyrians are capable of communication or negotiation, I want authorization to attempt peaceful contact before deploying the weapon." Thorne was silent for a long moment. "Louise, the xenobiologists believe their collective consciousness makes them incapable of individual thought or negotiation. They operate purely on instinct, like a hive mind." "Maybe. But if there's even a chance for a peaceful solution, I have to try. I won't commit genocide without exhausting every alternative." "Very well. You'll have full authorization to attempt communication. But Louise, if they refuse to negotiate or show any signs of preparing another attack, you deploy the weapon." "Understood?" "Understood." The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of preparation and modification. The Shadow's Edge was retrofitted with additional scientific equipment, expanded life support systems, and the neural disruptor weapon itself, a device roughly the size of a briefcase that contained enough viral agent to cripple an entire star system's worth of coral colonies. Louise's crew was expanded to include Dr. Chen, the xenobiologist who had developed the neural disruptor, Dr. Sarah Martinez, a specialist in alien communication protocols, and Lieutenant Commander Jack Morrison, a tactical officer with extensive experience in hostile first contact situations. The night before departure, Louise stood in the observation lounge of Sol Station, watching Earth rotate slowly beneath them. The planet looked peaceful from this distance, its blue oceans and white clouds hiding the massive defensive installations that now covered its surface. The magnetic shield generators were invisible from space, but their presence could be felt as a subtle distortion in the starlight. "Second thoughts?" Dr. Chen asked, joining her at the viewport. Constantly, Louise replied. Are you having any? Dr. Chen was a small, elderly man with kind eyes and gray hair. He had spent the last 2 years studying Zephyrian biology and psychology, trying to understand their motivations and weaknesses. The neural disruptor was designed as a last resort, he said quietly. I always hoped we'd find a way to communicate with them, to make them understand that humans are more than just resources to be harvested. Do you think there's a chance they might listen? Honestly? No. Their neural structure is so different from ours that I'm not sure they're capable of recognizing other species as sentient. To them, we might be no different from cattle or laboratory animals. The analogy made Louise shudder. She had seen the aftermath of the neural harvesting process, the empty-eyed stare of humans whose minds had been partially absorbed into the collective. If the Zephyrians truly saw humanity as nothing more than livestock, then perhaps genocide was the only option. Dr. Chen, what happens to the absorbed human minds when we deploy the weapon? The scientist's expression became pained. I don't know. The neural disruptor works by severing the synaptic connections that allow the coral colonies to share consciousness. If the human minds have been fully integrated into the collective, they might be freed. But if the integration is too complete, they die along with their captors. It's possible. I'm sorry, Captain. I wish I had a better answer. The next morning, the Shadow's Edge launched from Sol Station with minimal fanfare. Their mission was classified at the highest levels, known only to a handful of senior officials and the World Council. As far as the public knew, Captain Reeves was leading another reconnaissance mission to gather intelligence on Zephyrian movements. The journey to Proxima Centauri would take 6 months, even at maximum superluminal speed. Louise spent the first few weeks reviewing the mission parameters and getting to know her new crew members. Dr. Martinez was optimistic about the possibility of communication, having developed several theoretical protocols based on mathematical and scientific concepts that should be universal. Lieutenant Commander Morrison was more pessimistic, believing that the Zephyrians' aggressive nature made peaceful contact impossible. Their entire invasion strategy was based on stealth and surprise, Morrison argued during one of their planning sessions. They didn't announce themselves, didn't try to establish communication, didn't issue demands or ultimatums. They just attacked. That doesn't suggest a species interested in diplomacy. Maybe they were afraid, Dr. Martinez countered. From their perspective, they were encountering a completely unknown species. They might have attacked out of fear rather than aggression. Dr. Martinez, Dr. Chen interjected. Our analysis of captured Zephyrian technology suggests a highly advanced civilization. They'd been spacefaring for thousands of years, probably longer. This wasn't their first contact with an alien species. The debates continued throughout the journey, but Louise found herself hoping that Dr. Martinez was right. If there was even a small chance of peaceful resolution, she had to try. The alternative, the complete extinction of an entire species, was too terrible to contemplate without exhausting every other option first. 3 months into the journey, they received a priority transmission from Sol Station. Admiral Thorne's image appeared on the main screen, her expression grim. Captain Reeves, we've received new intelligence from our deep space monitors. The Zephyrian fleet has accelerated beyond our initial projections. They'll reach Earth orbit in 4 months, not 8. Louise felt her stomach drop. How is that possible? Unknown. It's possible they've developed new propulsion technology, or they're pushing their existing systems beyond safe limits. Either way, your timeline has been compressed. You need to reach Proxima Centauri and complete your mission within 3 months. After the transmission ended, Louise called her senior staff together for an emergency meeting. We can reduce our travel time by another month if we push our engines beyond recommended limits, Lieutenant Commander Morrison reported. But it would mean using all our backup fuel reserves. If something goes wrong, we won't have enough power to get home. What about the scientific surveys we plan to conduct on approach? Dr. Martinez asked. We'll have to skip most of them, Louise replied. We'll have time for one quick pass through the system to locate the primary coral colonies, Then we deploy the weapon or attempt communication. Dr. Chen looked troubled. Captain, rushing the mission increases the risk of failure. If we don't properly identify the correct targets, then billions of people on Earth die. Louise finished. I understand the risks, but we don't have a choice. The mission continues as planned, but on an accelerated timeline. The Proxima Centauri system was unlike anything Louise had ever seen. As the Shadow's Edge dropped out of superluminal speed at the edge of the system, their sensors immediately detected the massive alien structures that orbited the red dwarf star. My God! Dr. Martinez whispered, staring at the main display. The coral cities were enormous, some larger than Earth's moon, and they pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that created an eerie, hypnotic light show across the system. The structures were clearly alive, their surfaces undulating like vast sea anemones in some cosmic ocean. Between them, smaller vessels moved in complex patterns, their movements too coordinated to be anything but guided by a collective intelligence. Whisper, passive scan only, Louise ordered. I don't want them detecting us until we're ready. Acknowledge, Captain. Initial scans reveal 17 major coral structures and approximately 300 smaller vessels. Energy readings suggest highly advanced technology, possibly beyond our current understanding. Dr. Chen was already analyzing the sensor data, his excitement evident despite the gravity of their situation. Captain, these structures are incredible. The largest ones appear to be several hundred kilometers in diameter. The neural complexity must be unimaginable. Can you identify which ones are the primary command centers? Louise asked. Based on the communication patterns we're detecting, I'd say the three largest structures near the second planet. They're coordinating the movements of all the smaller vessels and colonies. Louise studied the tactical display, noting the defensive positions of the Zephyrian fleet. The alien vessels moved in patterns that seemed random, but were probably highly sophisticated defensive formations. Getting close enough to deploy the neural disruptor would require navigating through multiple layers of security. Dr. Martinez, are you ready to attempt communication? Yes, Captain. I've prepared a series of mathematical sequences and scientific concepts that should be universally recognizable. If they're capable of peaceful contact, this should get their attention. Lieutenant Commander Morrison, what's your assessment of their defenses? Formidable, but not impenetrable. Their vessels seem to rely heavily on energy weapons and some kind of gravitic manipulation technology. The Shadow's Edge should be able to penetrate their outer perimeter undetected, but once we're inside the system, any aggressive action will bring the entire fleet down on us. Louise made her decision. We'll attempt communication first. If they respond positively, we'll try to negotiate. If they're hostile or non-responsive, we deploy the weapon. Dr. Martinez, transmit your communication package. The next several minutes passed in tense silence as they waited for a response. The mathematical sequences and scientific concepts were broadcast on multiple frequencies, designed to capture the attention of any intelligent species monitoring their space. The response, when it came, was immediate and overwhelming. Every Zephyrian vessel in the system suddenly changed course, converging on their position with terrifying speed. The coral cities pulsed with angry red light, and the space around the Shadow's Edge began to warp and twist as gravitic weapons targeted their location. They've detected us! Morrison shouted. All vessels are converging on our position. Evasive maneuvers! Louise ordered. Whisper, emergency acceleration! The Shadow's Edge leaped forward, its stealth systems straining to keep them hidden as dozens of alien vessels closed in. The ship's hull groaned under the stress of emergency acceleration, and Louise could hear the engines approaching their critical limits. Captain, Dr. Martinez said, her voice shaking. I'm receiving a response to our communication attempt. Put it on speakers. What came through the speakers wasn't language in any sense humans could understand. It was a sound like screaming metal mixed with whale song, punctuated by harmonics that made Louise's teeth ache. But underneath the alien cacophony, there was something else, a pattern, a rhythm that suggested intelligence. It's not random, Dr. Martinez said, working frantically at her console. There's a mathematical structure to it. They're responding to our communication, but what? Captain, I think they're rejecting it. The pattern suggests negation, refusal. They don't want to communicate, they want us to leave or die. The nearest Zephyrian vessels were now close enough that Louise could see them on the main screen. They were beautiful in their alienness, organic curves that flowed like living coral, surfaces that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. But their intent was clearly hostile, as energy weapons began charging for firing. Dr. Chen, Louise called. Prepare the neural disruptor for deployment. Target the largest coral city. Captain, are you sure? Once we deploy the weapon, there's no going back. Louise watched as more Zephyrian vessels appeared on their sensors, hundreds of them now converging on their position. The alien response to their communication attempt had been clear. They had no interest in peace or negotiation. They saw humanity as a threat to be eliminated or a resource to be harvested, nothing more. Deploy the weapon, she ordered,